Hi, 8th graders. Hope you guys are doing well and staying healthy and enjoying this extra time with your family. So I just want to make a video so that we could touch base a little bit as well as go through your information for the week. So I'll probably start out with going what your assignments are for next week, and then we'll kind of walk through some of the things, how to do it, maybe how to complete some of these things, and how to send it back to me. And then I'm going to actually talk you through one of your PowerPoints, so you don't necessarily just have to read it yourself. We can talk through it a little bit and go from there. I'm also going to set up a Zoom meeting this week. So on Tuesday at 1 p.m. I'm going to be on Zoom, and I'd like all you guys to join me, and then we can kind of go through a few things, talk about what we've been covering, and maybe explain a few things, and just an opportunity for you guys to ask questions as well as say hi to each other and see some of your classmates and things like that. So if that doesn't work for you or you have questions, let me know, and I'll try and we can get something figured out as well. So let me start by, I'm going to change you to so you can see my computer screen, and we will go through some of those things. So for March 30th through April 3rd, so this week, I have your task list up here. So the first thing is to watch this YouTube video. Okay, it's just about identifying fish and some of the ways you can identify it. It's 6 minutes long. Not really too long. I think it's very capable for you guys to watch that. Then you're going to read through a fish PDF. So that looks something like this, okay? Common fish in North Dakota. So you're going to read through it. There are quite a few pages. I don't expect you to read every single thing, but the font's pretty big and there's a lot of pictures, so it's not too bad. So you need to scan through this, read this, okay, and then you have a worksheet to complete on it. So that's kind of what that looks like. I'll attach that. You guys should be able to open it up. And if you want, you can even open this up so that your screen shares. So if you minimize this, you can have this on one half of your screen, and then you can pull up your worksheet on the other half. I just gotta get it adjusted here so it would look something kind of like this. Okay, so I did the first one here for you guys as an example. So you have to look at the pike family. Okay, so write the names of the members of each fish family, then write 1 or 2 facts about the fish family. Okay, so if we look at the pike family, let's go back over to our book here and find the pike family. Okay, so we have the pike family here. 2 fish, we have the northern pike, and then we have the muskellunge. Okay, then 2 facts about the fish family. So you could put, these are, there are 2 members of the pike family. Both have long bodies, so fish with long bodies and long snouts, and you could put that they have large teeth. And the dorsal fin is located along the back. Okay, so just kind of how you go about that, doing that. So then if we keep going, scrolling on here, we can look at the perch family. So perch family, there should be 4 of these. So we can put members of the perch family include walleye. Oops, I screwed that up. Oops. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, guys. You have to deal with this. Okay. Walleye, sauger, yellow perch, darters. Okay. Then what I want you guys to do is, so I know you can, okay, so then you can just complete it like that. Then you have to go 2 facts about this family, okay? So 2 facts about them. Kind of understand how that goes. This shouldn't really take you too long, okay? So that's what that looks like. All right, I'm gonna minimize. Okay, we're back to here. So that's task number 2. This worksheet on this fish ID that I just pulled up that we were completing together a little bit is due Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. You can either share that on Yammer. Here, maybe I'll add this onto here. Share on Yammer, or actually, why don't you guys just email it to me? Email to Emily.Hauk1 k12.nd.us, okay? Due Tuesday night. So if you would have questions on that, you can ask that. Any questions you might have about that during our Zoom meeting on Tuesday as well. Okay, number 3, you're already watching this video, so that means you're already starting to watch the PowerPoint. So I'll go through this PowerPoint on human-wildlife interactions. Then you are going to have a worksheet on that. That's due Thursday night at 11:59 p.m. And then I'm going to attach your study guide. So we are kind of wrapping up our wildlife unit. So I'll attach your study guide, and I want you to work on completing it, but it's not going to be due till early next week. So I'm was planning on you guys starting to work on your study guide on like Friday. Then you have a few days. It'll probably be due Monday night or something next week. And then we will have our test like the Tuesday or Wednesday, either, depending on what I decide and how we decide to do that, okay? And then the last thing I have is just down here is how you get onto your Zoom meeting. So all you have to do is copy this link. So if you copy this, I'm gonna copy, and then you go, oops, paste it into, paste, enter. It should come up, and then you can click Open Zoom Meetings. If you might need to download and run Zoom if you haven't had it before. I don't know that it's going to open up right now because it's scheduled for 10 next Tuesday. Okay, it is. Okay. So I just want to join with my computer audio. So it tells me that okay, so this is kind of what it should look like. Oh, I didn't want to do that. You can start your video by this button down here. And it can't start because I'm recording this other one, but if you could do that, and the mute button. So that's kind of what it will look like there. I'm just going to X out of that and meeting for all. Oops. Oh, crap. Stop. Oh, cancel. Sorry, it was doing a bunch of other stuff that I didn't want it to do. All right. So you can join a meeting by like that, or if you just go to zoom.us, here, let me just go to Google once. So if you go to Google and then go Zoom conferencing, up here you can click join a meeting, and then you can just use personal ID, which is this meeting ID right down here. So you could copy that in to join the meeting that way. If for some reason you're not getting on, don't be afraid to email me. I'll watch my email while we're doing that so that I can help you get on or answer any questions too. So, with that being said here, let's just go ahead and start going through our PowerPoint a little bit here. Let me see if I got this right. Okay, so our video is a little bit larger than it needs to be, so you're going to see some of this extra stuff on side, but just worry about this. All right. So let's talk about wildlife and human interactions. So what we're really going to be talking about is how wildlife interacts with the humans itself and how that can be a positive and negative thing. So while we're watching this video, I just want you guys to observe the people and animals in here. Okay, I have it pulled up, so I just want to play this over here.
Dear Big Mac fans, today reach out to someone who's never had a Big Mac and ask them why for us. Today is your day.
Let me see if I can fix this here.
Now available in 3 sizes. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Please, I just want to go.
Now, don't try to kid me, Man Cub. I'll make a deal with you. What I desire is man's red fire to make my dream come true. Now, give me the secret, Man Cub. Come on, show me what to do. Give me the power of man's red flower so I can be like you. Oh, Scooby-Doo, I want to be like you. I want to walk like you, talk like you too. You'll see it's true. Someone like me can learn to be like someone like you. Now, you might think it's ridiculous that me, a Gigantopithecus, would ever dream I'd like to team with the likes of you man cub. But together we'd have powers. All the jungle's treasures ours. I got desire, you got the fire, but the dream I dream takes two. So, I wanna be like you. I wanna use that flame just the same as you can do. Oh, how magnificent it would be. A Gigantopithecus like me could learn to do like you humans do. Just one thing we need to reach our full potential. Bring me that red flower. And when you rule this jungle, I will protect you. And you will want for nothing ever again.
Okay. So, oops. So what is he talking about when he talks about the red flower? Does anybody have any ideas? I'm sure you guys have all seen the movie Jungle Book. Maybe not necessarily the newer one. Well, I'm sure you guys have all seen the newer one. But at least one of the Jungle Books. So when he's talking about the red flower, he's talking about fire, right? He wants that fire because when humans use fire, what happens? Thinking of it in terms of like the Jungle Book setting. That fire destroys everything, right? It displaces animals from their habitats. It can kill animals or kill their food source, kill their vegetation, make them move. You can like herd animals into a spot if you push out the fire. It can kill the animals if if it gets to be too large. So in the movie, the ape really kind of sees fire as the ultimate power, right? If you have fire, you can control the jungle. You can control where the animals go. You have the ultimate power, okay? So I just want you guys to think a little bit about how that kind of sets humans apart from wildlife, right? We have different abilities. We have that ability to like use these tools. We can think a little bit more, like not to say that animals aren't smart or that they can't think and stuff, but we have the ability to reason, and that's kind of what sets us apart, okay? So in other words, how does that affect our role on what we should do to protect and preserve animals in our system or in our wildlife, okay? So the objectives, we're going to list indicators of human-wildlife conflicts, describe the role humans play in wildlife loss, give examples of human activities that limit populations and ecosystems, okay? So what is human-wildlife conflict? This is a conflict that occurs when wildlife requirements overlap with the requirements of humans. So this impacts human welfare and has economic and social costs, okay? So conflicts that occur when wildlife requirements overlap with the requirements of humans. What would be one wildlife requirement that overlaps with humans? Space, right? We can be fighting for space. So like if we keep, let's just think of Fargo. Fargo has grown and expanded a lot in recent years. So every time that expands, we're displacing wildlife. We're fighting for that space for wildlife to live, for humans to live, okay? So that can kind of be a big deal. So human-wildlife conflict driving forces. So human population growth. We are growing our population size, but is our world getting any bigger? No. We still have the same amount of land that we had at the beginning of time, but there's more humans, okay? So when humans need a place to live, they're displacing animals from their habitats, from their homes. Land use transformation. Think about land that we use for food production, energy, or raw materials. So, like when we harvest like if you plant a field, let's just say you plant a field to corn. Is that saying that wildlife can't live there? No, they typically will like move back into those places and live there during like the later spring, early fall when that corn is still standing. But right away, like when the field is harvested, those animals aren't necessarily living there, or we're like displacing them. They have to move when we go and plant the field and run things, or till the field. We're moving those animals. Or think of like a duck's nest. They can't necessarily build a nest in a field. They have to find a different place to build when that's happening, okay? Whoa. Hang on a second. Okay, well, I'm just going to keep going, and hopefully this is recording my audio. So, microphone's on. I'll have to go back and check. Okay. The other thing, think about like roads. Roads divide people or animals now, because not so much like a gravel road, but if you think of like a big highway, animals can still cross that, but it's a danger to them, right? When they cross the road, it's like a risk for them to move across the road because they might get hit, and also they just don't know necessarily what it is, so they're not necessarily comfortable crossing that road right away. All right. So increasing livestock populations. How would increasing our livestock populations be a conflict for these other animals? They're fighting for the same resources, essentially. If we have cows out on pasture, they're eating grass, they're drinking the water. Well, the wildlife needs that too, okay? An abundance and distribution of wild prey. So overpopulation of animals. Looking at that. Climatic factors. Seasonal changes in rainfall or temperature leads to diet and habitat change for animals. So that can change where the animals are and how they live and respond in different areas. And then animal populations decrease or species are limited. So we have a role in that too, because what we choose to do can limit or decrease populations or species. Or if we are overhunting, that would be a way too. So human-wildlife conflict indicators. This is a species distribution, so species shift away from human activity that may indicate displacement. Okay. So if we build a house, we might be pushing animals away from that area. But if species shift towards human activity, it may indicate attraction of opportunistic species. So like one thing I would think about maybe is if you live on a farm and you have like corn or silage laying around, you might have mice or rats. They might shift towards you and attract to that because it's a food source for them. Okay, so looking at how some of those things affect each other. Habitat destruction. Habitats can be destroyed by natural causes, human actions, and pollution. So human actions could be building highways, subdivisions, factories, agricultural practices. What about even just habitat destruction? Like we have a lot of coal mines in North Dakota, out in western North Dakota, or the oil fields. We built a lot of different like oil substations. When we mine, we literally scrape away and dig a hole in the ground to get that coal. Those are ways that we're displacing animals or destroying their natural habitat. Now, are we going to put those habitats back? Yes, we have a very good system in place where after we're done like mining coal, we are going to restore that habitat. But for those 5-10 years that we're mining there, those animals are being displaced, okay? So that means they have to go somewhere else. So human impact on wildlife. Harvest. So hunting and fishing. Okay. I would say some of like hunting and fishing, there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're using your food source. Now, if you're just like trophy hunting and you just want to go hunt for like the biggest rack, is that necessarily the best? No, probably not. Okay. But it's okay to hunt and fish as long as you're not over hunting or overfishing. We can introduce exotic species. So, sometimes there's like different things where if you go fishing, you have to make sure that you clean your boat once you get out of the water so that you don't carry invasive species from one lake to another lake, okay? So sometimes we introduce harmful species that we don't necessarily intend to. Fire suppression. Okay, so we talked about fire a little bit at the beginning. Fire occurs naturally, and sometimes fire is okay and can be useful. We can, a natural wildfire, let's think about that. So a natural wildfire, it might displace those animals for a while, but it's not necessarily a bad thing because it will burn the dead trees away, the ones that were dead, and can start new growth. Fire can be used for weed control because you can burn a pasture and then the weeds will be gone, but it'll come back stronger with grass, nice grass. So sometimes by being able to control some of those natural things, a controlled fire is not a bad thing, okay? Campsite and trail development. So in the wildlife, sometimes we develop campsites and trails for us to use, and that can displace some of the wildlife that are there as well. Grazing, mining, predator control, animal harassment are all impacts on wildlife. What's predator control? So that would be like coyote hunting, right? They're considered a predator. They prey on on our calves, on other small animals. And if we control them too much, then we might all of a sudden have an influx, an increase in rabbits or something else that is ate that way. Harassment, okay? You hear all the time of people being attacked by bears maybe, or buffalo in state parks. And that's because people typically are harassing those animals. They're getting too close, getting in their personal space. Not necessarily something that you want to do. Okay, so are all interactions with humans bad? Why or why not? Just think about this for a second. So hopefully you've answered no, right? We have a lot of good interactions with animals too. We just kind of need to make sure that we're keeping in mind when we're overstepping or helping too much, okay? So it's good to interact with animals, and we can do a lot of good too, because if there's an overpopulation, they might not have enough food. So we can control some of those things so that the animals that are living are healthy. We can provide veterinary services to animals in places that might need it. We can control and make sure that there's food available for these animals. So our interactions with them aren't necessarily bad, okay? We just need to be mindful of what we're doing and making sure that we're keeping appropriate actions in place. So that's the end of that PowerPoint. So I'm going to go through and, okay, so this is your worksheet. Ooh. Please check your internet connection. I'm not sure what's going on right now. Let's see if it loads. Shows my internet's working fine. So this is just one thing that we're going to have to work through, is some of these technical problems, and I'm going to be very understanding of that, and things along those lines. If you can't get your things done on time or whatnot, just let me know. I am more than willing to work with you guys, but the communication factor needs to be there. If you say, like, all of a sudden you don't turn an assignment in for 5 weeks or even 3 weeks and I don't hear anything from you, what am I going to assume? Just that you didn't do it, okay? So if you're having problems, make sure you let me know. I am willing to work through them with you. Cancel. So let's just try this again. Word was unable to, okay. Let me just try reopening it once. So let me go to File. Oh, okay. Here, so this one works. Let me just, so it does say note sheet. This is going to be your worksheet. So I just want you guys to complete this. When you complete this, I need to update this a little bit here. Oh, actually, just kidding. So we have one more thing to go through too. I'm not on my right thing. Why is this not plugged in? There we go. Give it a moment for it to come up here. There we go. Curriculum classes. You guys are seeing all my good stuff. Oops. We're not on our plant science unit yet. Okay, so we just have one more thing to go through as far as some of our intro to wildlife management stuff. Okay, so what is wildlife management? So like we talked about before, we said management or wildlife interactions aren't all bad. So wildlife management maintains populations of wildlife at consistent levels with the best interest of wildlife and the public in mind. So there's various laws and regulations that ensure this, and there's scientific practices as well that focus on plant and animal species. So wildlife approaches. So there's one approach is preservation, allowing nature to take its natural course, okay? The second approach is management, so the manipulation of populations or habitats to achieve desired goals. And then the third one is conservation, so an effort to maintain and use natural resources wisely, okay? So let's just look at these a little bit. So types of conservation could be research, education, law enforcement, and then wildlife management. So if we're talking about research, that would be like looking at population numbers, making sure that things stay healthy. Education is going to be looking more at the side of what are humans doing to conserve that. So making sure that we're educating people about the importance of our wildlife. Law enforcement, making sure that overhunting or overfishing isn't happening, making sure that we aren't taking invasive species from one lake to another. Okay, those would be some of those law enforcement things. So some agencies involved would be like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Land, the EPA, which is also known as Environmental Protection Agency. You've probably heard of some of these before, like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife or the U.S. Forest Service, because we have those around here. They are like, if you go to Fort Ransom, that's a state forest, so the Forest Service takes care of some of those things. We're not going to do that. So, the importance of wildlife management. Wildlife management is to balance wildlife numbers with available food, cover, and water sources so that healthy populations can exist. So a healthy population, they have the capacity of increasing or maintaining stable numbers. Whereas a declining population, there's no gains, but they lose numbers yearly. Would you want to lose numbers yearly? No, that's not really ideal. Okay, so you just want to kind of balance your numbers where they're at, as long as there's enough food and space and water to provide for those levels, and so that they can occur out there naturally and being healthy. Like, you don't want them to have chronic wasting disease. Population management. This is to mitigate significant economic loss, to control the spread of transmittable diseases, to prevent or minimize severe habitat alteration. So we don't want to change their habitats. They live here for a reason, so we want to keep the habitats the way they are. And then to prevent human injury or death. Okay, so if there's like a lot of coyotes in the area, we don't want them to attack people's dogs. Okay, and then to protect or sustain endangered, threatened, or native species. So especially our native species, people really try and keep those because that's what were originally in North Dakota, so we want to keep them here. All right, let's see here. We aren't going to draw a picture. Okay, let's just watch this video here quick.
Wildlife conservation is the study of flora and fauna populations.
Wildlife conservation is a mixture of so many different subjects.
Wildlife conservation is preserving and protecting wildlife through actions such as habitat management, policy.
So you've got your sciences like biology, taxonomy, you can go into politics like policy. You've got your math side of it, and you can do statistics and population dynamics. Nature all around us, it's not just for us right now. I think it should be protected and preserved.
I grew up hunting and fishing and always wanted to learn more about the species I interacted with, and I wanted to give something back for future generations.
Mostly our students are very passionate about conserving wildlife. They've grown up either watching wildlife on TV or directly experiencing wildlife in the outdoors, and they're just really interested in being out there, getting their hands wet and dirty, and playing with animals and making sure those animals are able to last long term.
I chose to study wildlife conservation because I've always just loved animals, and I've loved working with them, and I really wanted to get into a major that I knew I could contribute to the conservation of animal species.
I chose to study wildlife conservation at the University of Delaware because they have a great department. In the classes, it's not just always in the classroom. Sometimes you're outside and hands-on. You really get out there in the field and experience it.
The University of Delaware is a great place to study wildlife. We are situated in a wonderful area near the Chesapeake Bay and the Delaware Bay. We have a lot of wildlife species that come through there.
Students come to the University of Delaware because we give them a unique experience dealing with research, study abroad. We have small class sizes. We also have individual advising experiences that you won't get in a lot of other institutions.
I was very interested in the undergraduate research program because I really wanted to get more experience working directly with the animals that I would be studying.
A lot of people end up doing research together. A lot of people just know each other because we're in the same classes. It's not a huge program, but the people who are in it are dedicated to it, and we all have a great time together.
Okay, so with that, I just wanted to show you guys that what conservation necessarily means, and that there are careers out there in it. So some of you might be really interested in a career like that, especially like maybe Jacob. I could see you pursuing a career in wildlife management. So just something to think about as you start going through some of your classes and get older out there. Okay, so what are some challenges of wildlife management? Some challenges would be invasive species. How do we control invasive species, and how do we keep them from harming our environment? Pesticides. So farmers are using pesticides and herbicides on their crops and fields, and so runoff can happen and get into the drinking water. So farmers are trained to really make sure that they try to minimize runoff of pesticides so that it doesn't harm wildlife. Industrial development. So developing these different areas for plant, or that industrial development would be like building homes, things like that, okay? Loss of animals, death or endangered species. Trying to avoid the loss of animals. How do we avoid death without stepping in too much, okay? Maintaining balanced carrying capacity, okay? So we talked about before, we have population levels, and then you have carrying capacity. So how much space there is and how much potential you have to put these animals there, but not exceeding that carrying capacity. And then misuse of practices. So that's like your overfishing and hunting. Let's see here. So how can we practice wildlife management? We can educate others and ourselves. We can be law-abiding citizens and follow restrictions. So like if it says there's no hunting, please don't hunt there. Just making sure that we help others understand why it's important to conserve and preserve our natural habitats. Okay, so with that, now we can look at our worksheet here. So I want you guys to go ahead and complete your worksheet and do go about things like that, okay? When you guys go through this, like here, are all human interactions bad, yes or no? I'll just say no. Not all interactions are bad because we can help sustain animals and other things, okay? So I'm just doing a brief one. Then what I want you guys to do, wrong thing, sorry, is I want you guys to make your answers red so I can see where your answers are, okay? Then just save this and email it back to me. So then on Friday, what I want you guys to start working on is your study guide, okay? So you have questions in here. This is kind of lengthy, so I'm not going to make it due on Friday. It'll be due the following week, okay? And once again, if you would just make your answers red, that would really help me so that I can see where you're going through. So with that kind of covers what we're going to do this week, what's expected of you. Please feel free to go ahead and join our Yammer group on Tuesday. If you've watched this, if it's already past Tuesday, I guess you can't join anymore. But if you have questions or I'm not sure what you're supposed to be doing, just get a hold of me. Okay, you can email me, emily.hauk1@k12.nd.us. Okay. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week, and hopefully I can see you back in the classroom sooner than later. But take care, stay healthy, and have fun with what you're doing.